It's a new year, a new chapter, and a new you. And sometimes life has unexpected turns. You may look at selling in the winter months. Is that necessarily a bad thing? To hear our thoughts and more, stay tuned to this episode of The Den.
The Den, powered by the Lyons Group, a show dedicated to exploring hot topics in real estate, local happenings, and industry trends. We're a small team of professionals approaching $400 million in sales and nearly 2,000 local transactions. You're listening to time-tested experts and industry leaders. Here's a refreshing look at real estate happenings and more. Welcome to The Den.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Den. Today, we're going to be talking about selling your home in the winter months. And is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? You'll hear our thoughts. But before we get to that, let me introduce my friends, my partners, my co-hosts, the fellow members of the Lyons Group. To my left, Paul Hammy, the Rockberry, Aspen, the Ninja Groen, and the boss, Shannon Martin Martinez. My name is Ben Winter Schminter Lyons. There's no stopping me in the winter months.
No.
I just move forward no matter what. I mean, that's just the way you got to roll, right, Paul? You're like a snowplow, dude.
I don't know what we're talking about.
we put some cleats on you and put a little snowplow on you. You used to snowplow back in Boston.
I did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Winters aren't the same here as they are back east. I mean, back east, there's some, they get
heavy wet snow.
Yeah, heavy wet snow. So, but today we're going to talk about, is it a good time to sell in the winter months? Sometimes life takes you on these journeys where it's like, oh, well, we got to sell. We have to move out of town or we need to accomplish something. We have to liquidate an asset, whatever it is. Is selling in the wintertime a good or bad thing? And that's the topic of discussion today. So Ninja, I'm going to you today. And we're coming off a big weekend. Now, when our audience sees this, you'll have already been Madam President for several weeks. But you did have an installation this past weekend. It was fantastic.
And a birthday.
Big
Yeah. Yeah. And are you counting backwards? You see, you're not old enough to start counting backwards.
No, I am with the impression that getting older is a privilege. So I embrace my age.
I like that.
Good job.
Said the young one.
Yeah.
Said the young one in the group, yeah.
Who knows? No,
Ask in 20 years.
I do think
See if you still feel the same.
I've always thought that was kind of a weird thing to not like share your age. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah. It's just a number, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what are your thoughts, Ninja, on selling in the winter months? Because our phones will start ringing. Mm-hmm. We'll start getting the calls. Hey, thinking about selling. And oftentimes when we hear that, I know it's a bad time to sell. If I were a client calling you, I know it's a bad time to sell. What would you say to me?
Well, I can tell you our conversation this morning, we all have more buyers than we have homes for. I think especially in San Juan County, we don't really have an off season. You can just kind of keep on selling. We have there might be one day where we get some snow or we have to reschedule a showing, but it's gone by the next day. So specifically in this area, I don't really think selling in winter is necessarily a bad thing. Would I list it a few days before Christmas? Probably not. But after the new year, I would go ahead and list it because we're getting calls so often. We were just talking about how busy we were with buyers. One thing that is something to consider right now happens to be a really dry winter in Southwest Colorado. So we're continuing to sell right now, but typically from about January to March, if you're in town, there's not so much of an issue. But if you're out on those dirt roads and you get snowed in and it has to be graded, some people might not be able to make it to your house because of the snow or the mud. So that is a little bit of a different situation. So I would say on really, really heavy snow times in your area, it might be beneficial to wait a little bit longer because people might not even be able to access your home. And then it's been listed for a few months. Right now, we're exceptionally dry, which is not a good thing, but that might change.
Yeah, hopefully we get some moisture coming in. And I think that's case by case, right? I mean, if you have a home that's on 5 acres out in the middle, a mile off on a dirt road, yeah, you may want to consider.
Yeah, something else to think about is just the liability too. I don't think there's any issue with listing in the winter, but if you're going to have, it's a vacant house and you're selling it and there's feet of snow on the roof and there's ice on the driveway, you need to have someone that's maintaining that for you so no one gets hurt on your property. I have seen that quite a bit in Colorado mainly, just not maintained in the winter because they're selling it and they just want to get rid of it. But you need just a liability standpoint, I would have someone maintaining that.
Yeah, it could be problems. I mean, we just had a situation where my mother and father-in-law, she transposed the number to the utility company. So it was like $205. She wrote 205 and it was supposed to be 250. They showed up. They didn't give her notice. And we're like a month later, we're going to shut her off. And she said, whoa, this isn't right. Because if we were gone and you shut my utilities off, now you've got big problems, pipes freezing and things like that. And, if homes are vacant, it's problematic, even in the summer months.
I had that happen whenever I went. Bryson was so mad. We went to Florida for a few weeks. This was a few years ago. And we came back late at night in the middle of summer. It was so hot. Paul knows Bryson was so mad and all of our utilities were off. I had them set on auto pay and for some reason it turned it off and I just never check it. And we came back from vacation and we didn't get a notice. We didn't get anything. It was just shut off in the middle of the night. We had to deal with it the next day.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. Imagine if you had a foot of snow and it was, dipping down to.
Yeah. Luckily it was summer. We opened up the windows and it was nighttime. It was fine.
Turned one of them oscillating fans.
Yep. Yeah. So it was okay, but.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I've had coffee this morning, Paul. Yeah.
I did too.
We used to, you know what? You were a kid like me. You used to stand in front of the big box fans.
Box fans, yeah.
And just
your robot voice.
Yeah,
Luke.
I did. That was the Darth Vader.
Yeah. So, but barring that the situation where you have a home that's, off the beaten path, you think selling in the wintertime is a relatively good thing. Now, you said something interesting about holidays. How much should you be cognizant of holidays before you list a property?
I don't think I would list from just me personally from like Thanksgiving week, probably till New Year's. You can, because there's always going to be people looking, but it's kind of one of those things too. Do you really want to be making sure your house is clean and ready while you're also doing your holiday prep? I personally would probably wait until January 2nd. And that doesn't mean you have to. That's just what I would personally do. One thing that's a big pro is you have a lot less competition in the winter months, especially at the beginning of the year. So from January 2nd to February, March, people are kind of in that limbo waiting till spring and waiting till early summer. I think that's a good time to list because there's people looking, especially February, people are starting to get tax returns. They can use that to purchase a house. So I would want my house already up and ready to go by the time that happened.
Yeah. Where is that sweet spot? What do you think, Shannon?
I agree with Aspen. People are still looking even in the wintertime. And one of the advantages you really have is if you put a house out there on the market, like we said, we all have buyers, but we don't have any inventory for them. I can't find what they're looking for right now. People still need to move in the wintertime. Your home might be show a little bit better in those warm months, especially if you have a really nice yard, something of that nature. But the right buyers, if you need to sell, they don't care. They can see that you've got nice bones. They can see, maybe use some summertime pictures that you had in your listing. That could help as well. But I think I don't know that there's really a perfect sweet spot time to list. I mean, it's really dependent on your needs. But I say don't hold off. Don't hold off because it's winter, because we still have plenty of buyers that have to find a house. They have a need. They have a drive. They need to find a house and they don't have inventory to choose from. So those buyers will have something, to choose from. You've got a lot less competition.
Yeah. And there's always an ebb and flow in the market. I mean, we had 10 years ago, we had so many homes on the market and we didn't have a ton of buyers. And so we would tell our clients back then, Paul, we would say, list now because gosh, come spring and summer, you're going to have even more competition. I mean, how does that play in the competition component? Paul, what are your thoughts there?
When there's less inventory, obviously you want to be on the market. I tell people all the time, you can't sell what's not for sale. But I think, what I was thinking is winter months, it's not necessarily the amount of inventory that plays a part when there's a lot of inventory and you want to be on the market and competitive. But the product you're putting out, I think, is more important than the time frame. So if you have a house that needs repairs or something like that, it's going to sit in the winter months. But if you put up a pristine, house that everybody's looking for, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-3-car garage on half an acre, everybody's looking for that house. And if there's no repairs and it's move-in ready, it's going to go quickly. I don't think that and that's what I've seen over the years. I mean, we say don't list, during the holidays, but if you have a great house and it beats everything on the market, it's going to sell right away.
So instead of just thinking about the timing, you're thinking about the product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think for me in the winter months, I don't think that it's a bad time. I just think if you've got a bad house, that's the worst time to put it on.
Because it looks the worst in the winter. Houses don't tend to look better in the winter.
And the water issues come up more in the wintertime. Yeah, if the roads are bad, you get out there and then you have a bad house or a bad product for people to look at. The yard's not the greatest, but if it's a good house, it'll sell any time of the year.
And people aren't thinking about the north-facing driveways, and then
you really notice that in the wintertime.
In the wintertime, you go, you're like, holy cow, I can't, it's ice packed on the north side of the house.
Well, and that goes back to what Aspen was saying. If you're living on a dirt road or something like that, it's not that we want to hide those things from a buyer, but do you want that to be their first impression? Is sloshing down the muddy road, maybe it's a little impassable, they have to put it in 4-wheel drive. Yeah, then they get there and the house faces north and the steps are all icy. I mean, think about the maintenance you would have to do to make that welcoming for a buyer during the wintertime could be very difficult.
And that's what I'm saying. But if they went through all of that to get to the perfect dream house that has no issues, they'll overlook almost anything.
Right.
Yeah. But it could affect their opinion a bit about the property, because then it's like you said, it's not that you want to hide it, but then it's forefront of their mind. Oh my gosh, this road can get really muddy.
So I actually have a something along this lines. It really wasn't about condition as much, but I showed a house just about a week ago and it was pretty far out. And the broker told me before we went out, she said, you have to really want to be there. You have to want to be around nobody. And my people wanted to see it. The wife wanted to see it, I should say. So we drive out there. I thought it was a fantastic house, but I couldn't live there. It was too far out. And when we're driving up, it says, do not cross this on a snow-packed road. You can't even go on there apparently when it snows. It was a clear day. Me and the wife went there. She loved it. The husband, who was in a separate car, actually stayed at the top of the road. He went halfway there and went, no, it's a no for me. It's a no for me already. Yeah. So, that kind of stuff leading up to the house, he didn't even want to see the house because he already knew there were too many obstacles. The road was too rough on his car. And then he sees a sign that says, don't not pass. He's like, I won't buy it.
I've seen a few houses like that where I love the house, but I would never buy it because it's a steep dirt road and it's such a long drive and it's not graded and you're bouncing the whole way. And
yeah, it was such a turn off for him. And, the house was really neat, but it was just a no before he even got there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because the realtor who had that listing should just write in there, if you don't like people, you should
right.
like this house.
This is your house.
This is your house. Nestled back, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it.
Boasts and nestled are the two most overused words in real estate.
Yeah,
cozy, nestled, and boast. Yeah. So, so do you think that they're actually going to be a shorter time on the market though? Because like, for instance, right now in the market, as we were talking about earlier before the episode, we got a lot of buyers. You think your time on the market would be lower if a seller went to market right now and tried to beat the rush? And when does the rush happen?
I actually do think it would be lower. Well, maybe not, because once the market heats up and more people are jumping in, you might get multiple offers later on. So I guess it really is, you could look at it either way. But yes, you've got less competition right now. If you list a home right now, like you were talking about, that desirable, hopeful home that everybody wants, 4 of them didn't hit the market today. In fact, 4 of them didn't hit the market this week. So yes, people that are looking are going to jump on it.
It's weird because I just had the last 4 listings I've had, and we're obviously in the wintertime. Each one of them have had multiple offers. And so does the market really heat up? I mean, that's the question. Does it really heat up, or is there just a lack of inventory in the winter months? And so it appears that it heats up as you move into spring and summer. What are your thoughts?
I do think the later nights for summer makes a difference too, because we go see a house at 5 p.m. right now. It's so dark.
And that is a struggle. I've been showing some people property and we wanted to look at 2 homes, and both of them, the view was the setting was a big component of the property. And I told them, I said, well, let's go look at it, because that's all they had was after work. I said, but before you really decide, we need to at least make one more trip out there. If you decide one of these is it, to see it in the daytime. Well, they got off work early, drove by, called me and said, yeah, we don't even want to look. You are so right. The setting made all the difference in the world, and they didn't even want to see it. So seeing in the dark is sometimes problematic for people as well. And not everybody can get off during business hours, before 5.
December 22nd hits, and I'm like, I always tell my daughters, I'm like, hey, you know what today is? And they're like, what, Dad? I go, it's the shortest day of the year. Every day after this, it gets longer, and we do a little celebration. But it'll start getting lighter and lighter. But I think that's a genuine point. I mean, if you can't get out there and see it in the light. In fact, I had to show a home twice just last week because we had to see it in the day. I mean, you really have to take an inventory of it while there's some light outside instead of walking around with a flashlight.
And it's not always practical just to wait till you can see them in the day, because you might have a list and you can eliminate. They don't even want the house, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you end up going back and showing twice to see it in the day.
And I've seen, certain segments of the market are a little bit faster in this time frame. I think the lower stuff is really not selling right now. It's going to sit until the busy season picks up and the investors come back out. Because I've been sending out, lists of available homes, and there's like 4 on this list, maybe 10. I sent one out with 18 homes earlier today, but the price point was very low.
Yeah.
I have been surprised at some of the houses that are sitting here. I've actually seen some really good flips. I've seen a few good investment deals, really good first-time homebuyer deals, and they're just kind of sitting there. Shockingly, there was one on the market. We just went under contract yesterday. It was on the market for 89 days, and I was like,
"It was a cute house,
great house." Yeah,
I have 3 of them right now that I don't know why they're not selling. They're right in the right.
Interest rates are they're like at a peak right now. They're so high right now. People just can't afford it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's winter because we do have people looking.
Yeah, we have people looking, and it's just the monthly payments right now are steep. I don't think it's even necessarily a bad time to sell, good time to sell. Houses will sell no matter what. Even if you list it on Christmas Day, it'll probably sell eventually. So the timing is kind of all moot unless you have one of those really unique houses. But I think the affordability factor right now is what's really impacting people's ability to buy more so than the time that it's listed. But in that sense, I wouldn't want to wait to list it until interest rates were perfect, because that's what everyone else is going to do too. And then you're going to have a big influx of listings that you're having to compete with. So it's kind of like, which one's better? It's really hard to say.
When do we see the big ramp up in listings? Is it usually at the end of March?
I feel like it's like end of May after school's out.
Okay, so it's later in the year.
I think so.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I usually see when the weather starts getting warm. That's when, for me, when I start getting calls from people or people start chattering about, we're thinking about, doing this. Yeah, I think that's when it really starts. But you're right. A lot of people, in fact, I have some listings right now, and I was just sharing them the other day and said, but she can't move until, June. Like, we're not putting it out there until then because, she's got a child in school. Doesn't want to move them. Yeah.
And that's a little bit different because they have something restricting their ability to leave the house because their child's in school. So they don't want to sell and be homeless or have to rent for a couple of months while their child finishes out the school year.
Switch districts.
Districts. Yeah, it can be a big pain, or just wait a few months. But if all things are equal and you could go to market, like I would be dialing my house in and getting ready to go to market if I were a seller right now.
I have no qualms on when to list my house. I just listed one of my personal houses. What was it? Over Christmas break? Yeah. The time I said I probably wouldn't. That's whenever I listed.
That's when you listed.
Right. And it was it's a country property, river property, more difficult. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And you had no problem at all.
And I didn't have a problem.
Yeah, half a gas to get to the gas station.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
It's bad.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, we're the guinea pigs for you. I mean, right there goes to show. And there wasn't a small price tag on that too. So
small house. But
and it could be argued that, the beauty of that little location on the river, big trees, green, would
have shown better in the summertime.
This is the ugliest time right now.
It would have shown better in the summertime.
Summer and fall are
But it still didn't stop anybody.
No, because people can see and I did have pictures of whenever everything was really nice. So I did include those. But I think you can see what it is and how special it is. So list whenever.
Yeah.
But
I think Paul makes a great point. Like, focus on your product, right? Because if your house is dialed in and it's, you've taken care of it, and if you haven't, start doing that now because it takes time.
Product and also price. Make sure you price accordingly. Now, with less competition on the market, you can, have a little bit more leeway with price. But if there's a lot of competition, you got to be aggressive if you want to sell. That's what we used to see, way back when people would say, why isn't it selling? Price is too high. It's always too high.
Well, and that's a great point that you bring up, because the last couple market analysis that I've done, we've talked about, let's start prepping. Let's look at a list of what we might need to do. Let's do a market analysis. Let's get things going in the right direction, because we want to do this in spring. And each one that I've done a market analysis, I've said but when the time comes, let's look at the comps again, because really, if a bunch of stuff floods the market and interest rates are still high, you may have more competition and that doesn't work anymore. Or if interest rates drop a little bit, even if the market is flooded and things are just multiple offers and selling right away, maybe we get some more. It can change.
Yeah, that changes weekly.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, you may get a flood of new listings in 2 weeks, and you're like, oh, well, great. Now we've got some serious competition, and we should have hit the market sooner. So
those factors weren't there when we did the market analysis. But
last year is a good example. I did a market analysis. We took about 3 weeks to get on the market, and by the time that we were ready to go to market, a house right across the street went on the market for almost $50,000 left and sold right away, and it messed us up for months.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Yep,
it's real tough.
And it goes both ways. I mean, I had one in Flora Vista, and they took about 6 months to do some repairs on it. And by the time it went to market, literally there were 4 or 5 more comps that made it worth probably $50,000 more. So things change. Our market changes. If you're really looking at the current picture of everything when you go to market, you have to look at that again, even if you did one just a month or two ago.
I think that's great advice. And I do think so. So if you are in the market to sell your property, don't wait, because there will never be a perfect time. The perfect time is when your house is ready to go to market. Get it ready. That's the number one thing. Get it dialed in. Do all the little odd and ends. That takes time. Consult your realtor. Have your realtor come out, because through the process of a market analysis, I mean, we all have conversations with our sellers about that. How do you prepare your home for going to market? What are the best things you can do? And as a consumer, you should be having, or as a client, you should be having your realtor out to have those conversations now, because getting contractors out to do it, especially during this time of year, is a little bit more tricky than normal. And then, of course, you find that balance where you go into summer and then they're booked out for, weeks and sometimes months if they're good contractors. But that's the most important thing. Polish the product. And then the timing is what it is. But don't be afraid to go to market in the wintertime. We have a perfect example of that. Everything said, don't take your home that's on the river live in the winter months during the holiday season.
Multiple offers
and sold because the product was nice. So great discussion. I'm going to do a quick speed round. And Paul, I'm going to kick it off to you. Now, you have all kinds of homes. You have condos. You have homes on the river. You have little 3-2s. You have rural properties. What is the best home to sell in the winter time frame? I know. That's a curveball right there. What's the best type of home?
The best type of home?
To sell in the winter.
The one that is ready to sell and is priced appropriately.
That was a trick question. I love it. He got it. He hit it. Aspen, your thoughts?
Yeah, unless it's impassable or a real pain in the winter, I think just about any home. And I do kind of think if the landscaping is really, really, really beautiful, it might be worth at least having some summer pictures or something in there.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can sell a house anytime, but if there's some special circumstances, which most homes don't have, but those couple that do, you should wait.
Yeah. And I would agree with all of you, and I agree with Paul wholeheartedly. Make sure your property is good to go to market, and then you can go. But I do think that's the best home, is the home that's ready to go to market. But I do reserve the caveat that if you do have, 8 or 10 acres on the river and it's beautifully manicured, it may behoove you to wait a little bit. But life happens. That's part of it. Sometimes you just have to go to market and get the product out there. So great discussion. I'm going to jump into my favorite part of the podcast. And we haven't done this for a while because we talk a lot.
Yeah.
And some of these things get a little exhaustive. I do want to talk about the Lyons Pride. So when we can on episodes, we like to highlight individuals, entities, organizations that go out and make our community better and do great things in our local community and give them a shout out. So Paul or Aspen, do one of you want to take it? It's been a little while.
I've got one.
Okay.
You've got one, Paul? Why don't you jump in?
All right. Well, earlier this year, I was asked by our mayor, Nate Duckett, to serve on the Parks and Rec committee. And I didn't know how much that committee, that department does. So I would like to give a shout out to Natalie Spruill and Krista Romay. They're over the Parks and Rec and the Cultural Affairs departments. They're doing a ton of projects. The All Abilities Park over off of Apache. They're doing the pavilion by the museum. They run the museum. So many things. I think
we have the best parks here.
We do.
Every neighborhood has a park, and they're all beautiful and well kept.
And they're doing I think it's 15 major projects right now. They also run everything that goes on in the Civic Center. I mean, it's an amazing, and those two ladies, I went through Leadership San Juan with them a long time ago, and I'm super proud and super impressed with what they've done. So that's
and oftentimes it's a thankless job, right? Yeah.
Well, they don't get credit for any of it.
We take it for granted, but you're right. We do have beautiful parks here.
Yeah. When we have
people, takes work.
People come in from out of town, they do remark on, they're like, wow, look at all the parks. Look at all the stuff you guys have. And I said, yeah, as a community, we really get behind, our outdoor recreation, but also our parks. Our community really supports those type of things. And the All Ability Park that's going in, that is fantastic.
I'm very excited for that.
I'm really excited for that as well. So we'll have an update on that. Well, Paul, that's great. And Natalie and Krista, thank you for all your dedication to our community. Thank you for being on Parks and Rec and doing what you can to make this area as beautiful as it can be and accessible to people. So we have all these great amenities. So that's fantastic. Great choice, Paul. Appreciate that. And welcome to the Lyons Pride on that. So if you like our content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to our Facebook page. You can get all kinds of content there. Sign up for our newsletter. We send out a great newsletter every week with updated stats and information and listings. And also you can go to sjcbroker.com and schedule a private consultation with any one of us here at the Lyons Group. We'd love to help you, whether you're buying or selling in today's market. We can give you an advantage. So thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to The Den, powered by the Lyons Group. Hit the subscribe button to keep informed on real estate happenings. If you'd like to learn more about the Lyons Group, visit sjcbroker.com. Complex markets require complex strategies. The Lyons Group can give you a true advantage in any market. Whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial, contact us directly at sjcbroker.com. We're time-tested experts with a client-first approach, and we'll see you next time in The Den.